welcome back. This video is going to be looking at how to work out percentages of amounts, and it's going to look at two really useful methods for doing this. So the first slide is actually just a bit of practice and a bit of a warm-up. So pause the video, have a go at these questions, and then we will self-mark. Okay, so I hope you've had a go with this. Right, so here are the answers to the questions. Give yourself a mark and make any corrections on this if you need to. Okay, let's go straight into the definition. What is a percentage? Well, a percentage is a proportion of a number. So it has to be of something. So for example, you cannot have 20% by itself. It has to be 20% of, for example, 30 or 20% of 7 kilograms, 20% of 4 centimeters. So it's a proportion of a number as a value of 100 equal parts. All of those are really important things to remember about percentages, and we're going to look at how we can apply those over the course of this whole sequence of videos in this playlist. So here are some practical examples of percentages in everyday life. For example, how you scored in a test, the price of a chocolate bar, or any type of thing in a shop, service charge, use people that use statistics as well to represent things like populations or amounts of something. So let's go into a few really useful calculations that will help us work out percentages. So to find 1% of something, it is usually quite easy to work that out, because what you want to do here is divide by 100. So divide by 100 and automatically you have what 1% is equal to. To find 10% of something, it's the same as finding 1/10, which is the same as dividing by 10. To find 50%, it's the same as finding a half, which is dividing by 2. To find 25%, it's the same as finding a quarter, because 100 divided into 25 parts, you're going to get 4 of them, or 100 divided into 4 parts, you're going to get 25. So 25% is a quarter, which is the same as dividing by 4. And then we've got other common percentages. For example, 20% is the same as dividing your amount into 5 parts, or for working out a fifth. 5% is the same as, to 5% of something, you're going to divide by 20, 1/20th. And then there's a few special cases which you don't have to use, you won't use all the time, but it's good to know that they're there. So 12.5% you can divide by 8 to work out, if it's simple to divide by 8. Otherwise you can do different other calculations, and we're going to look at those. So it's worth jotting down these useful shortcuts to work out these percentages, because we're going to be using these a lot in the next exercise. Right, here comes the first question. Find 10% of 80. Now, there's two ways to lay this out. The first way is a double number line, which you can see here. And the second way is using a table. So we do that just by doing a cross. So let's use the double number line. The first thing we want to label is on this side, we've got percentages. On the other side, we've got the amount. So the first thing is, if I'm finding 10% of 80, well, 80 is my amount. So 100% is 80. Now, from the previous slide, we know that to find 10% is the same as dividing by 10. So if you want to show that on here, we're going to write 10% here. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly to scale. So if I did my 10 down here, if I did it up here, it doesn't really matter, as long as we know roughly that is roughly looking correct here. So that's 10% there. 10%, well, if I'm dividing by 10, then I'm going to need to do the same thing here. I'm going to divide by 10. So when I divide by 10, I'm going to get 80 divided by 10 is 8. So 10% is 8. And this is one way to work it out. The other way to work it out using the cross is just to put 100% is 80. And then it's essentially the same representation here. We can just go straight to 10%. So to work this out, we divide by 10. And then to work this out, we do the same thing. Divide by 10, we're going to get 8. So 10% is 8. So both of these methods are equally valid. We're going to gradually build up the complexity throughout this exercise and the next one. So 20% of 80. Now, let's do this in two different ways. So we're going to use a double number line and the table, but within that, we're also going to try a different method for each. So first thing we want to do is label 100% and the amount is 80. Now you could straight away just work out 20%, because as you know, to work out 20%, we're going to divide by 5. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to divide by 5. I'm just going to make that look a bit similar in size. So 80 divided by 5, and you're going to get 16. Now if you didn't want to do 80 divided by 5, we might actually do this a slightly different way here. So let's use the table to do this. So 100% is 80. I'm going to now work out 10%. So 10%, I'm going to do 80 divided by 10 is 8. So we can show what we're doing by using arrows here. So divide by 10, divide by 10. Now to go from 10% to 20% is actually a lot easier here, because we're just going to multiply it by 2. So times 2, 8 times 2 is going to be 16. So sometimes you can take multiple steps, sometimes you can do it in one go. Both equally valid, whichever is easiest, whichever requires the least effort, but we need to make sure we use one of these two methods. Right, here's another example, 50% of 240. Pause the video and have a go. Try both methods, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go. So first thing you do is you write the percentages on the side. So 100% is 240. And 50%, this one's a nice and easy one. 50% is the same as this calculation, dividing by 2. And we're going to do the same thing again. Divide by 2, it's 120. So the answer is 120. The other way to do it is using this table here. So we can say 100% is 240. Let's do this a slightly longer way, just for the sake of practice and exposure to different methods. You might decide to work out 10% first. Probably not very efficient, but we can do it this way, which is 24. And then we're going to work out 50% from that. So to go from 10 to 50, we're going to times it by 5. And we're going to do the same thing here, times it by 5. So not very efficient, but you can see we're going to get 120. Okay, next question. Find 25% of 80. So you can pick your method. Either use the double number line or the cross. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go with this. I am now going to show you how to work out the answer. So 100% is 80. And this time we can actually work out 25% straight away. So 25%, to work that out, we are going to divide by 4, and we're going to divide by 4 as well. When you do 80 divided by 4, we're going to get 20. And we can do the same question using the table method, which I'm just going to fill out here. So 100%, 25%, and that's straight to 20. Okay, next question. 40% of 600. Have a go. Pause the video. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go. Let's work this out. We'll start with the table this time. So we know that 100% is 600. And then we can work out 10%. Usually that's the most straightforward one to do. So we're going to divide by 10. We're going to do the same thing here. Divide by 10. 600 divided by 10 is 60. And then we need to work out 40%. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. So times 4. 60 times 4, which is 240. And that's your answer. 240. And we're going to use a double number line. 100% is 600. 10% is 60, and then 40% is 240. Now, if you want to show your working out in more detail, you may have done this. You may have done divide by 10, and then again divide by 10, and then for the second calculation, you would have done times 4 times 4. And that's how we're going to get our answer. So you can see the methods are really similar, both the left hand side and the right hand side. You can pick whichever one you want to use. So 70% of 350, have a go with that, and then I'll show you the answer. Okay, I hope you've had a go with this. Let's work out the answer to this. So there are many ways to do this. Let's use this method. So 100% is 350. And then we know that 10% is 35. And then we can go straight to 70% from there. And we're going to do that by multiplying by 7. And we're going to do the same thing here, multiplying by 7. So 35 times 7. So 5 times 7 is 35. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 3, 24. So we're going to get 2, 4, 5. Hopefully you've got that as your answer. And likewise, you can use the table to do this as well. Okay, next question. This is just more of a worded question. So a service charge of 15% is added on a bill. How much was the service charge? So how much are we adding? We're adding 15% to 120. We need to work out how much is that. So what we need to do is work out 15% of 120. So let's use the table method for this example. You may use the other way method as well. So we know that 100% is 120. We know that 10% is 12. And actually from here, to work out 5%, we're just going to divide by 2. So divide by 2, so that's 5% is 6. Now, can you think of how we might be able to work out what 15% is here? We were not actually going to need to use multiplication this time. We're actually going to add 10% and 5% to get 15%. So that's going to be 12 plus 6. And 12 plus 6 is 18. So 18. Now in this case, it's actually currency. We're looking at money. So 15% of 120 pounds is equal to 18 pounds. So that's our answer. Now, have a look at this question, pause the video and have a go, and then we can go through it together. Okay, so let's have a go with this. Let's put our diagrams in. So we can use whichever one we want to, either the double number line or the table. So in a village, 65% of, that should say of, not of people have brown hair. There are 120 people. How many people have brown hair? So 120 people represents all the people in the village. So that's 100%. 100% is 120. 65% of them, and that's where we want to get to, so 65% of them have brown hair, and we want to work this out. Now, to go from 100 to 65 in one step, it's not as straightforward. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go to 10%. That's the usual friendly amount here. So divide by 10, that's going to give me 12. I'm also going to work out 5% here. So 5% is 6. Now, if on your page you ever run out of space with your double number line, you can just extend it quite easily. It doesn't have to be perfectly drawn. It's just 2 lines. And then we are going to work out 60%. So let's work out 60%. To go from 10 to 60, we're going to times it by 6. And we're going to have to do the same thing here. So we're going to do 12 times 6. So we're going to get 72. Now, think about how can we get 65%? Well, we've got 60%, which is 72. We've got 5%, which is 6. So we're going to do 72 plus 6, which is 78. So 65% of 120 is 78. And then again, we can represent this using the table method as well. So 100% is 120, 10%, 12, and then we worked out 5%, which is 6, 60%, which we multiplied by 6, so we're going to get 72, and then 65% is 78. That's our answer. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Find 11% of 240. Pause the video and have a go, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, here it comes. So 100% is 240. 10% is 24. And then we're going to work out 1% as well. So in this case, that's going to be 2.4. So you can probably guess what I'm going to do next. So hopefully you did that as well. 11% is just a combination of 10% and 1%. So 24 plus 2.4. So that's going to be 26.4. That's 11% of 240. And we can use a table method. I'm not going to show you that method here. Hopefully you've got it by now. Now, let's look at some tips. Things to watch out for. So, if you're answering a question like this and you do your double number line, the scale doesn't have to be exact. So you put 100% on the top. If, for example, you put 10% here and you run out of space, you can just make the line a bit bigger, put 1% there. The other thing is, these lines do not need to be very, 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 very long like this. You don't need to have 100% here and 10% down here. You can make it shorter. You should think ahead about what percentages you're going to need. So in this question, for example, I'm only going to need 100%, 11%, which is what I'm working out, 10%, and 1%. I don't need to work out any other percentages, so it doesn't need to be a massive diagram. The third thing is if you're, for example, doing a table like this, writing 100 and 240 is not very useful because it doesn't tell you what you're looking at. So you need to write the percentage sign here. And if 240 has units, they should be here. For example, if it was pounds, there should be a pound sign there. You then don't need to write percentages underneath or pound for every value, as long as it's on the top column. The other thing is, some people like doing it the other way around. So you might have your percentage on the right and your value on the left. Just something to be aware of. And finally, doing one of these methods, either the double number line or the table, is really important. So showing you're working out is really important. So here is an exercise for you to try, all 10 questions, using either the double number line or the table if you prefer. Pause the video and have a go, and I'm going to show the answers in 5, 4, 3, 2, and as if by magic, here are your answers in red. So they're here. Mark your work. If you're not sure, then leave a comment or email. I hope that was useful. There is one more thing we're going to do. So the problem solving exercise is what we're going to do next. Here are the questions. Read them carefully, have a go with all of them. Pause the video. Okay, now I'm going to show the answers in 3, 2, 1. These are the answers. Okay, and that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Smash the like button if you did find it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.
That's what I always do, and they never catch me. Ain't nobody gonna catch me.